I know Maki can't make it. Aaron, we'll wait for Aaron. Let's see. I think that's it. Sam, is Sam going to make it, EJ? Do you know?
I'm sorry, I don't know if he's
Okay.
available today.
Yeah, okay. I know Aaron was coming on, right, Layla?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, we'll wait and then we'll start when he gets on. What time is it? 3 after. I'll wait till 5 after.
Dinner. Come on.
Okay, I think we can start. Hopefully he'll pop in while I'm giving the little initial information for the record. Hi, everyone. This is the executive meeting of CB5. The exec committee meets once a month to be apprised by each committee chair of actions and or discussions that have taken place at the committee level. That leads us to our main purpose, which is to form and finalize the agenda for the full board meeting. So we seldom take action. However, on rare occasions and in emergency situations, we will do so. This evening, we have no such actions, and therefore we will not be deliberating or voting on any issues. Members of the public attending the meeting may sign in as an attendee. And if you'd like to address the committee this evening, your comments will be taken up as new business at the end of our business session. Let us know by using the raise hand feature at that time. And again, we'll not be deliberating this evening. All members of the public are encouraged to sign up for and participate in the public session of the full board meeting, which is this coming Thursday, if you wish to speak to issues that are before the board for action or any other matters that may be of common interest to the board. Having said that, I think we can get right to work with our committee reports. Layla has to leave at 5:30. So if that's okay with you, Nick, we had you down first, but we'll do Layla to start. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nick, for allowing me, and thank you, Vicky, for allowing me to go first. We had 2 items on the agenda. We had 1 application and 1 proposal, and this is for the Land Use, Housing, and Zoning Committee of CB5. The application is an application by JPMorgan Chase jointly with the vestry of St. Bartholomew's Church, and they are seeking the certification of the transfer of 13,000 square feet of unused landmark air rights from St. Bartholomew to a site, receiving site that is located at 410 Madison Avenue in the East Midtown subdistrict. The story here is a little bit convoluted. JPMorgan Chase, as you probably recall, came 2 years ago for the redevelopment of their headquarters. At the time, they had acquired development rights, air rights, both from the Grand Central Terminal and from St. Bartholomew. they proceeded to actually only use the Grand Central Terminal air rights for the development of their new headquarters. So they had an excess of air rights that they had purchased from St. Bartholomew that were unused. Then something kind of weird that we don't fully understand happened, where they did transfer, or they did gift, or they did sell. We don't fully understand the nature of the transaction, but these air rights ended up, part of these air rights belonging to St. Bartholomew, or like, you know, being associated with St. Bartholomew, that had been acquired by JP Morgan, ended up at a site that is developed by the Rudin family. That is actually across the street at 415 Madison. And then it looks like once this transaction was done and over, there was a remaining 13,000 square feet that were unused. And JP Morgan Chase decided to exercise their right to actually complete the transaction. And in order to complete the transaction, they need to tell everybody, including the city and us, where these air rights are going to go. And basically, they're telling us today that they want these air rights to go to 410 Madison Avenue, which is basically catty corner to JP Morgan headquarters. They have no intention of doing any redevelopment at this point. It is more of a placeholder. The current building is actually a 5 or 6 story building, a very elegant and beautiful building that would be eligible for designation by the Landmarks Preservation Commission. It is not a landmark currently. It used to be the headquarters of Bank of China. JP Morgan acquired the building, I think, in 2019 or 2018, and the intent to use the building as a site while the construction of their headquarters is proceeding. Once their headquarters are completed, it is likely that JP Morgan will actually seek the redevelopment of the site. They may actually do a lot assemblage. We're not able to really get any more information about what their plans are in the future. And we left the meeting with, you know, quite a few questions. At the same time, what is in front of us is very narrow. It is a certification by the chair of the City Planning Commission, which means that it is entirely non-discretionary. If they meet the criteria, then the chair has to certify the request. We believe that they do meet the criteria. At the same time, we're raising a number of issues, including the fact that the transaction of the air rights was not a straightforward transaction, meaning that, you know, the air rights didn't come from one site and go to another one. They went to one side, they were acquired by JP Morgan, they went to Rudin, and now whatever is left is going to this site. We feel that this kind of not straightforward transaction is concerning. We were under the impression that actually the zoning resolution addressed that and prohibited that kind of transaction. The applicant and their land use attorneys assured us that this is not the case, that, you know, they are falling under squarely under the rules of the zoning resolution. At the same time, we're noting in our resolution that the fact that the transaction is not straightforward is cause for concern, and we want to make sure that it is not setting any precedent where, you know, a developer or a third party would acquire air rights and basically speculate on them, which has always been the great cause for concern. So we ended up voting in favor because we understand that, you know, there's really no discretion in the way to look at this certification, but at the same time, we're raising the fact that, you know, we are concerned. We're also noting that we believe that the receiving site, you know, this particular existing building is worthy of historic designation, and that, you know, we'll look closely at that, and we are urging JP Morgan Chase to consider supporting landmarking the site.
Interesting. Does anyone have any questions? Leila, are you saying then, for argument's sake, let's say they had 100 transfer air rights and they used 50, they can use those 50 elsewhere? Is that
Correct. Correct.
anywhere?
the part that confused us and got us a little concerned is that, let's say, you know, they had 100, they used 0 on their headquarters. They gave 85 to Rudin under a transaction that is entirely sealed because it has to do with settling a court case that involves the MTA. And then the 15 remaining, they're now transferring to this particular site.
Okay. All right. Any questions from anyone? All right, or any comments? Okay, and the other resolution, you had 2, right?
Yes, that's right. The other resolution is not an application. It is actually a request that is the fruit of the labor of Julie Chu and Renee Kinsella, but really kudos to Julie, who has been you know, carrying this effort for, I think, 2 or 3 years, probably in her head and in her heart for even longer. And basically what Julie has done is that she created a task force trying to look at the issue of public bathroom and the access to public bathroom in the city, really. And, you know, it started with CB5. She put together this great coalition that goes way beyond the boundaries of our district, and done a lot of research, a lot of thinking about how we can actually bring more public bathrooms. And it is a matter of equity. It is a matter of, you know, improving the public realm, making our city functional. And so after all this amazing work that Julie and other members of this this task force have done, Julie felt that, you know, it was ripe for actually making a request for action. And the request for action is, you know, I think it's going to take, you know, multiple forms, but Julie made the request to basically have CB5 consider a zoning text amendment that would require POPs, privately owned public spaces, that are in excess of a certain square footage and that have certain amenities. And in that case, it's, you know, a restaurant or, you know, a hospitality kiosk or, you know, or establishment to basically provide a bathroom, which, you know, you'd think it's a no-brainer. But actually right now it is not in the zoning resolution. So Julie gave the committee an excellent presentation. We had a you know, great discussion, lots of, you know, questions and comments from members of the committee as well as members of the public. Overall, we feel that, you know, it's a tremendous opportunity. And, you know, we felt that the language was very, very carefully crafted, you know, of the resolution was very carefully crafted so that it fits the language and the intention of the zoning resolution. So we voted unanimously to support the request. And, you know, I just can't express my gratitude to Julie for the amount of work that she has done.
Absolutely. Anybody have any questions?
And I think Julie is on, so I don't know, Julie, if you want to say something, add something. Yes, I can see you.
No, I think you described it, just very simple zoning text amendment to just for access to bathrooms.
Yeah. And, you know, I think community boards 1, 4, and 7 have already, yeah, Julie, go ahead.
CB1 passed it at full board last month, and CB4 passed it at one of their land use committee, and we're presenting to their other land use committee tomorrow.
Fantastic. Awesome.
Great.
And Julie, is it correct to say that the goal here is, and the hope is that it may turn into a borough board resolution? And
Yes.
then, you know, hopefully we can also, you know, move forward with, you know, maybe making a formal application to the Department of City Planning so that, you know, it becomes a thing. And, you know, we're not going to sit on our hands going like, gee, we passed a resolution. We're going to really move it so that, you know, it becomes, you know, a real action in front of the department.
Joseph.
Yeah, thanks. This is really exciting. So yeah, great job, Julie and Renee and Layla, the whole committee. I guess just a couple of clarifying questions. One, would this, if this was implemented as a zoning text amendment, would it be retroactive, like this requirement for, pops over and below 10,000 square feet? Would it apply to those that already exist? They would have to then go ahead and like add this access if they don't have it already, or would it only be new pops that are being, I guess, licensed or approved?
Julie, do you want to take it? Or do you want me to take it?
Sure. I mean, we talked about this at committee, and Layla made a good point that POPs come every 3 years for recertification. So it's not only new applications, but recertifications that we would ask about this amendment.
Okay, great.
And Joseph, if I can add something here, the goal is not to all of a sudden slap all these POPs with, a very stringent new requirements. And we deliberately chose to remain vague on that. I think this will be part of the conversation with the Department of City Planning, where we could totally imagine that, you can recertify for a certain number of times and not be in compliance, but basically, what compliance look like. And then let's say, maybe the third time you come for your recertification, and Julie is going to be like, no, we need them sooner than that. And I don't know where the right number, amount of time needs to be, but the goal is basically to say, this is the new norm and this is what needs to happen. I think it's also important to note that the totality of these POPs, certainly in our district, are attached to existing buildings. So, they are literally attached in the sense that, the POPs generated the density for the building. They are managed by the same company and the same entity, maybe not the restaurant itself, but definitely the POPs is under the control and the jurisdiction of this particular building. And bathrooms do exist in buildings. So I think what we're saying is that, let's create a public-private partnership where, maybe we can give access to an existing bathroom that is within the building. And, that becomes part of this quid pro quo. You got a POPs, we got a POPs, you got additional density, and you're providing that kind of amenity.
Yeah, they basically have to be the new Starbucks, what Starbucks used to be. I'm just curious, is it the same resolution language that is going through, I think you said CBs 1 and 4, or do they have kind of different resolution language that, kind of captures the same idea?
Yeah, I have a copy of CB1's resolution, and they list specific POPs in their district and what's going on with those conditions. So each one is specific to our area, but the same general sense. I think ours is a little bit more specific about the zoning text. They wanted to leave it really open, but here we're kind of specifying some of the things we see in the zoning text where it specifically requires food amenities for POPs larger than 10,000 square feet. And that's when we saw an angle where food and bathrooms should go together.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Other than thank you so much, Julie. Kudos to you. This is wonderful. I know Renee is beaming because you feel the same way with the work that's been done on this. So thank you again. And let's try and push this for a borough board resolution. Absolutely. Okay, that takes us then to state licenses and permits. Nick.
Thank you, Vicki. SLEP has 2 resolutions this month. The first is a restatement of a resolution the board passed in December, providing comments to the cannabis, adult use cannabis regulations. Since the board passed this resolution in December, SLAP has received some additional comments, given it some additional thought, and there are 3 changes that we wanted to make to the resolution and reissue it. We are still within the comment period, so the OCM will consider our comments, so we want to make sure that they're up to date. The 3 changes are, first, we wanted to expand the definition of community facility. Under these regulations, the the guidelines, the regulations rather, require that cannabis facilities be certain distance from certain things like parks, public spaces, schools, things like that. Harm reduction facility was not included in the definition of community facility. A harm reduction facility is something like a drug treatment center, things like that. So we wanted the definition expanded to include harm reduction facilities. The second change we wanted was to suggest that the minimum distance between a licensed premises and a playground specifically would be increased from 500 feet to 1,000 feet. Playground is also already included in the definition of community facility, but the regulations only require a 500-foot perimeter from a playground. The committee thought that 1,000 feet would be more appropriate for a playground. And the third modification we made is to express our opinion that cannabis establishments should not have any outdoor space, so that there shouldn't be any cannabis consumption on sidewalk cafes, sidewalk sheds, rooftops, terraces, or any other outdoor areas. So we proposed those 3 additional changes to the regulations, and that was approved unanimously 11-0-0-0.
Okay, Nick, does this actually replace our old reso?
I just restated it in its entirety. I thought it would make more sense to have everything all at once in the same place, as opposed to having one resolution and then changing it with addendum. Especially since we're delivering these comments to the OCM, I thought it made sense just to restate it in its entirety and have it all in one place.
Okay, so if someone is looking up our position on this, and they go to the one on that we passed for, the earlier one, should we have some sort of notation that it has been upgraded or changed or whatever?
I would suggest we remove the former one because this one completely replaces it.
Okay. All right, very good. Renee.
I have a weird question, and I'm going to sound like an old fuddy-duddy, but is consumption illegal on the street of cannabis like now? I ask because it is illegal on the street, because like I see on 3rd Avenue, like the illegal cannabis stores, like everybody's like crowding around smoking outside of it now. So that's illegal now?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just not enforced, and that's a police issue.
Okay, thanks.
Samir.
For the restriction on outdoor consumption, I assume it's there because we're worried about people smoking or vaping outside. I was curious, I guess this would apply to edibles as well. If you're sitting in an outdoor cafe and you eat a gummy that has weed, we would want that to be disallowed as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, we didn't get into what things could be consumed outside. That would become a very difficult thing to enforce. So we thought that all consumption outdoors should not be prohibited, should be prohibited.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any comments? Okay. And you have a second one, Nick.
Yes, so this month, the Cannabis Task Force presented their report and proposed guidelines. The guidelines fall into several categories. One being our guideline that cannabis establishments have to be a certain distance from various things. We require that there be noise and odor mitigation. The guidelines require various restrictions on hours of operation. We also note in our guidelines that where a cannabis application falls into one of our restricted licensing areas, that if those requirements are more stringent than more strict than the cannabis regulations, then that establishment would have to comply with the RLA guidelines. Again, we comment that there should be no outdoor space for applicants, and we require that the applicant participate in community engagement and our process, which includes questionnaires and hearings and meetings and affidavits and all that fun stuff. And the committee approved the guidelines unanimously, 11-0-0-0.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. They're two great documents, Nick. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Vicky. The only comment I'll make is
Yeah.
that I've been very surprised throughout this whole process that we have not had a lot of public participation. It's really been like pulling teeth to get the public interested in this. There were only 2 people that attended the SLAP hearing from the public. Only one of them spoke. We had 2 members of the task force who were members of the public, and both of them resigned. It's just, it's really strange to me that the public is not focusing on this.
My prediction, it's all hell's going to break loose when it does. I mean, it is surprising.
Yeah.
Don't know why. Okay, anyone else? All right, that takes care of SLAP, right, Nick? All the
Yes.
reso, yes, okay. All right, moving on. What did we have next on the agenda? Let me pull it up.
I think it's me, right?
Leila did it already. Parks.
Yep. So we had 3 resolutions.
Mhm.
The first one was an application from Black House Group on behalf of Visit Orlando. It's a promotional event in Bryant Park next Saturday, February 18th. It's basically a tourism initiative for Orlando. It's a 1-day. It's the whole, basically the whole day. Yeah, it's the whole day, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. It's a relatively small area next to the carousel at Bryant Park. And what it basically is there's a big snow globe, and you can take your picture next to it. It says all things wonderful about Orlando. There's a picture of it in your packets. It's a 39 by 30 feet snow globe. There's minimal signage. There's a few standing signs. They're going to be giving out hot chocolate and sunglasses or scarves. There'll be a little bit of lighting just to improve the photo, but nothing major in terms of lighting. There's going to be no amplified sound, no social media. So it pretty much felt low impact for the money that they're going to get from that Bryant Park will raise from this. So we voted to approve, and that was unanimous. 13-0-0-0.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? Okay, next, Reso, Craig?
Sure. The next one was an application from FIT. They're amending some of the design elements for the pavers for their new academic building on West 28th Street. This came to us back in 2019. It was reviewed by land use because it was reviewed for the whole building itself and a number of elements that the Public Design Commission wanted to look at. So it seemed at that time more appropriate for land use to come in. They want to put in new pavers. They're having problems getting the pavers that they wanted because of supply chain issues. So they're changing the paver color and pattern from Griffin gray to jet mist. It's also in your packet. It's a similar color and tone, similar effect, but PDC wanted them to come back to us. They're also going to be putting donor name engravings on the pavers as part of their fundraising campaign. These are relatively small imprints, which I put examples in your packet also. I think it looks like everything is the same page number, but it's in the middle of there. It's just names. I don't think they're having corporations. I think the expectation is any corporation is going to have a very big donation, and it'll be on a donation wall inside the actual building itself. So you're not going to see Microsoft, a big Microsoft sign on the paper. It's just, that's not their expectation. We felt that the size and the layout of the pavers were fine. Nothing is really changing. It's just a little bit on the design. We were generally okay with the engravings as well. So we approved both of these changes. And that was also unanimous 13-0-0-0.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? Okay,
And I had spoken because she's off. I had spoken to Layla just because land use had weighed in at the last time, and she wasn't concerned about this, just so you know.
okay. All right, and then you have a third, right?
I have a third. So it's the annual resolution from Madison Square Park Conservancy came in for the annual roster of programming. For the most part, very similar to last year. For obvious reasons, there will be more events outside than will resume this year. So they'll have more art talks programs that will be in person as opposed to being on Zoom. They'll have the normal events that they've generally been having. So Halloween, Halloween, I should say that, in October, Party in the Park, their annual fundraiser at the end of March. Pup Parents Day for canine lovers in May, Leaf Fest, the Ecology Walk, horticulture programs, the seasonal display, a number of really interesting seasonal sustainability programs. All of that seemed fine to us. A lot of it was recurring from the prior year. The one thing that is sort of new, or I could say kind of coming back, kind of new, and I know some of the veterans on this committee will, cringe when they first hear it. They are bringing back the Big Apple Barbecue. Now, for those of you who have only been on the board for a few years, the Big Apple Barbecue used to be, because it's not coming back as the same type of thing. It used to be this massive take over the entire park for the whole weekend. Loud, smelly, because you had all these barbecue pits, monstrosity. I mean, I don't know if I guess that's Vicky. I mean, I think that's the best way of saying it. And they had it for years. And
You're being kind.
Yeah, and the residents all hated it. It took over the whole area for the weekend, and actually for the week because of all the setup. They got rid of it. They were able to get it out of the park a couple of years ago. After years of us complaining about it, they're bringing it back, but they're bringing it back very differently. Instead of taking over the park for an entire weekend and having all these pits and bringing people from all over the country, it's going to be one night, a Tuesday night for 3 hours on a small portion of the park. 30 pits, which is actually not a lot. 30 vendors, I should say. Most of the cooking will be done offsite. There might be 1 or 2 grills just to warm things up. 1 small band. It's much smaller. They're calling it the Big Apple Barbecue because they like the brand name. It's good for marketing. They're trying to raise money. We suggested that they actually change the name just because we didn't want anyone to think it's actually the Big Apple Barbecue coming back like it used to be. But from a marketing perspective, that name itself is very valuable to them, so they want to keep it. We did talk about maybe rebranding a little bit, like the all new Big Apple Barbecue or the refurbished Big Apple Barbecue or Big Apple Barbecue Light or something like that. So that they're thinking about that, but it's much smaller. It's raising a decent amount of money. Half of the year the park is under construction, so they're not able to do as many events. They haven't been able to do as many events this year, so they are worried about raising funds this year. As a reminder, they don't get money for their programs from the city. It's all from events and contributions. So they were concerned about that. So that's one of the reasons why they're bringing this back. But again, it's much smaller. It's a Tuesday night for 3 hours. It shouldn't be loud. It's not expected to be loud. It's not expected to be smelly. It's going to be local cooks, local restaurants coming in and flying people in from all over the world to do this. So we were not terribly uncomfortable. I don't know if we loved it, but we're not terribly uncomfortable. And we did vote to approve 13-0-0-0.
Okay, anybody have any comments or questions? I would love to have seen them change the name, but
Yeah.
I understand why.
And
Okay.
I did text my predecessor, chairperson, during the meeting to tell
And
him.
he
that-
almost had a heart attack.
And he almost had a heart attack. But, you know, it's not, it doesn't sound like it's gonna be anything like the old one.
Yeah, okay. Anybody have any other comments or questions? Fingers crossed. It sounds like it's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, that takes us, that's the last of yours, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, you had three. Okay,
Yeah,
that takes us to T and E, EJ.
Hello. So we had 3 requests this month. We also this month slightly tweaked our process in the way that we assess these requests. We deal with the issue that we don't receive enough information from DOT to understand why they chose a location versus another location for, say, a bus stop, or to make alternative recommendations for a location. In fact, DOT ignores our alternative location recommendations, which they did as recently as an alternative. We recommended and passed as a full board in December. The most important thing that the CB5 can focus on is providing a forum for significant concern or rejections, or significant concerns or objections by the community to a specific proposed location or proposed signage. And so that's what we're focused on in our resolutions. The first request that we got this month was a request by the Mosdeh Shuva Israel Synagogue at 122 East 58th Street for a no parking anytime sign in front of the synagogue. The synagogue was requesting a 1 car length no parking anytime sign, primarily to make it easier for pickups and drop-offs for the wide array of educational programs and events that take place at the synagogue and its associated yeshiva. And so they were proposing this 1 car length no parking zone. No parking anytime was determined by DOT. It was assumed because some of these events happen quite late into the evening. There were really no concerns or objections from the committee or anyone in the neighborhood. And so we determined that there was no significant objection to the sign as proposed, and we passed that 13-0.
Okay. Any questions or comments? What are the nature of the ones that you're going to be looking at? You want to explain the ones that you feel this new process will involve? It would be like bus stops.
I mean, we applied it to all 3 this month,
Mhm.
including that reso as well, including the signage. So yeah, I mean, I can dive into the next reso and maybe it'll make it a little bit
Okay.
maybe crystallize it a little bit. Again, it shouldn't affect our assessment or the ability to channel the feedback of the community or any obvious concerns and objections that the community has. The biggest thing is that we're really not receiving enough information to understand why this location versus alternative locations, and going down the path of trying to collect our own data, do our own street traffic surveys, and identify other locations where these things we're not getting enough data to make that kind of support or denial determination, and those sorts of going down the rabbit hole and making those types of recommendations was not getting any practical use by DOT anyway. So again, I think it's more about focusing on the proposal that DOT is bringing to us, again, usually without context, and determining whether we can crystallize significant community objection to that proposal or not.
And that eliminates a major part of the kind of footwork that people had to do in the past on the committee without really any information from DOT, correct?
Members of the committee were bending over backwards to essentially collect data that DOT had probably already used themselves in the preliminary analysis, but was not providing to us in any way. So,
Right.
you know, our committee members were going, you know, deep into, you know, walking the streets and trying to collect data and perform traffic analyses themselves that
Yeah.
DOT had already done. We're reinventing the wheel. We're doing it on our own time, and DOT is throwing out our analysis anyway.
Right.
So for all those reasons, we sort of decided to focus more on the specific proposal that DOT was providing with very little context and determine whether there was significant concern or significant objection that we could report to it.
Mhm. Good. Sounds like a good, you know, change. So, okay, you want to go into the next one and then it'll be more obvious.
Sure. The next application was by Aurora Tourism Services, LLC, doing business as New York Iconic Cruises. This was a request for 2 sightseeing bus stops. The first on 42nd Street between 6th Avenue and Broadway, and the second on the west side of 7th Avenue between 47th and 48th Streets. Both of these stops would be for sightseeing pickups and drop-offs Monday through Sunday. At both locations, roughly 8 a.m. to midnight, with a frequency of 1 trip every 2 hours. Importantly, the second location already has a sightseeing permit issued for a different operator, Gray Line, at that location. And the third request that we received this month was also for a sightseeing bus stop at that same location. So we factored in the fact that DOT was essentially proposing having as many as 3 sightseeing bus stops, sightseeing bus operators operating at that location. Given the locations and feedback from the community, there was significant concern of not only more than 1, but as many as 3 sightseeing bus stops operating at the same location. This existing Gray Line permit, which the Gray Line operator has not been operating for the last several years because of COVID, but came to our committee meeting and spoke up saying that they plan to start operating again as soon as this spring or summer, meaning that we are facing the prospect of as many as 3 sightseeing bus companies operating at the same location. We also heard from the community and the Times Square Alliance concern about the number of agents, selling tickets on the sidewalk, the queuing of customers on the sidewalk, and some anecdotal reports of illegal canopies on the sidewalk. Not trying to pin it on a particular operator, but there were a number of concerns about multiple operators operating at the same location, and similarly concern about congestion at some of these locations, such as the second one, which is indeed already an MTA bus stop. So we cited all these concerns. We reiterated our request that DOT should instead of coming to us one by one, should come to us with a comprehensive street use plan for the district. In particular regarding sightseeing buses, which again we're dealing with on an ad hoc basis, and which, unlike intercity buses, sightseeing buses can't just be moved into an intercity terminal, even if we build that at the Port Authority bus terminal, because their hop on, hop off business model requires that they be able to pick up from multiple locations. So as far as these 2 locations go, Community Board 5 found significant concern for both the stop on 42nd Street and the stop on 7th Avenue, including congestion on the sidewalk, congestion with MTA buses and the prospect of multiple sightseeing buses operating at the same location. And we passed that significant concern with a vote of 13-0.
Okay. Any questions or comments from anyone? Okay. And the third one?
Third one was similarly two sightseeing bus stop requests by Go New York Tours, doing business as Top View Sightseeing. One location on 7th Avenue between 40th and 41st, and one location at that same location, 7th Avenue between 47th and 48th Streets. Once again, pickups and drop-offs from about 8 in the morning until about 6 in the evening, this time every 30 minutes at both of these locations. Both of these locations are an existing Gray Line permitted bus stop. Gray Line, once again, saying that they have not been operating in the last couple of years, but they can begin operating again, perhaps this spring or summer. A Gray Line representative told us they are indeed planning to. Once again, community members expressed concerns about multiple bus stops at the same location, about conflicts with MTA bus stops that exist at both of these locations. Times Square Alliance expressed concern about ticket sellers and agents, and Community Road 5 reiterated its call that we would like to have some sort of strategy around sightseeing buses to understand, okay, well, how many sightseeing buses can the district contain? You know, what are the general rules about how close they're going to be placed to each other? What are the general rules about how many sightseeing bus permits should be issued for the same location? I would like to see some sort of comprehensive plan instead of doing it all one-off. Given all that context on both of these locations, Community Road 5, once again, our resolution states that we found significant concern for the proposed bus stop at each location, including congestion on the sidewalk, congestion with MTA buses on the streets, and multiple sightseeing bus stops permitted for the same location. And that once again passed 13-0.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or comments on the action on the third action of T&E? Okay. Marisa, do we have any updates from DOT on any of the questions we had? No. What else is new? Okay. We are trying to get an appointment or meeting going with DOT on a number of issues. One in particular, the whole question of what is happening with the Fifth Avenue proposal that was put out early this year by the mayor. We still have not gotten an answer, but we're working on it. Okay.
We did get an update today on the Broadway vision plan from extension from 27th to 32nd. So that was a bit delayed. CB5 got the presentation on it, I think in the early fall or so, but they will be implementing the street redesign with a March repaving of those streets. So we should see significant new street designs by probably the end of April or very beginning of May.
Okay. All right. That was just today. That was okay. Thanks, Marisa. Okay, Renee, I know your committee met, which means we should get a report. Would you like to give us what was discussed? I know there was some really important issues.
Sure. Bex had no action items, but we had a very good presentation by two presenters, which really turned into one greater conversation. The presenters were Laura Atlas. She is the director of External Affairs for the Test and Treat Corps of the New York Health and Hospitals. And she spoke about the HERC sites. Those HERC sites are the hotels that are hosting the asylees. And she was joined by Derek Gomez of MOYA, and that's the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. And they spoke just about the general services that are available to the asylees. And essentially, there are about 100 to 200 asylum seekers per day that are coming into the city. And they really spoke at length about everything that the city is doing to help, you know, just the families that are coming in, everything from enrolling children into schools to getting the children vaccinated, connecting families and individuals with all the services, with medical care. You know, the city's really offering, you know, shelter from the hotels. You know, there's the Watson, there's the Row Hotel, there's the Steward. You've heard about what's happening in Brooklyn at the what am I thinking of? At the cruise, at the ship for single males right now.
Cruise terminal.
Yes, the cruise terminal. Thank you. But you know, hot meals, laundry services, you know, everything from soup to nuts, really for people that are really in need. Medical care. The city's also running what they call a ticketing program, which means that if families or individuals want to move on from the city, they can. The city's helping to facilitate that. One of the issues that's happening is that charities in other cities are realizing that New York is really, really generous, and so that they're helping people to move to New York City. So New York City is really bursting at the seams, unfortunately. It's a real crisis at the moment, but New York is really stepping up and doing all it can. We also met Robin Forrest, who is the Mayor's Office of Community Affairs. She is their new CB5 rep, so we were able to meet her. And then we also discussed CB5's response to the preliminary budget. So we have to produce our annual letter by February 15th. I think that I circulated, you know, our response, what we got back. And so if anybody else, any of you have any response that you would like us to include in our letter, please get that response back to me. We have to do our annual letter by February 15th. So if there's anything that you would like to highlight from your committee in that letter from the agency. So I know that we got response from our committee. We know how important our district is in providing shelter during the pandemic and during the asylee crisis, and how it offers an opportunity for conversions and other affordability options. So we want to include that in our response. So anything that your committee wants to include, please let me know so we can include that in the letter.
Okay, anybody have any questions or comments? It was a good meeting, Renee. Very informative, yeah, very good. I think we should always do our reports first before we do our resolutions, because then we do our last vote of the night with our last resolution. So if that's okay with you, Renee, we'll put you first in the order. Is everybody else okay with the order as stated on the form that the office sent out, which would be SLAP first, land use second, parks third, transportation fourth, with Bex starting? Actually, there are 5. So would that be okay with everyone? Anyone anticipate people from the public? I don't think so. I mean, public was very quiet this month. So, okay, so Bex, SLAP, land use, parks, and transportation. Okay. All right, anything else that any new business or old business from anyone on the committee? Okay, would anyone from the public like to speak to the committee? If so, please raise your hand. Okay, I don't see anything. I don't see anyone. All right, I believe then that concludes our business for the exec committee. Thank you all very much. I look forward to seeing you all on Thursday evening. Have a good one.
Vicki.
Get an early dinner tonight.
Thanks,
Good night, everyone.
Bye, everyone.